Thanks everyone for joining us on time for today's career transition webinar, where we've got two stellar, stalwart soil alums with impeccable track record of not just their overall journey, but how they have faced multiple decisions in their life. And I'm personally very excited to be hearing both the stories. I will quickly preface this with a quick short snapshot. A very, very short, brief introduction of both of them. We've been joined by Febin Francis, who's a part of the 2015-16 batch, the co-founder currently of Box Seat by Rice Bowl, as well as Aswada. And I always say whether I've pronounced it correctly or not. Last time when we had Febin, the discussion was all about sales and distribution channels, and we were able to understand his forte, his in-depth knowledge about both of these. Has worked with Swiggy for over 4 years and 4 months, led the entire growth of Swiggy, and that's of course another journey that we can always interact with on with Febin. He did his BTech in mechanical engineering, and of course has previously worked with multiple other brands, and currently is an entrepreneur, as we said. We're also joined by Gokul Krishnan, a fairly recent pass out. He graduated from SOIL in 2019, was the vice president of the student council back then. So we'll probably dig in a little more about the student experience life that Gokul had. Has also been a certified Scrum product owner, is currently leading strategy planning and operations at Infosys. Graduated from BITS Dubai, then of course, had a journey with SOIL. So we'll let both of you spearhead the entire conversation. And of course, I request all the participants to please put their questions in the Q&A section after a quick Q&A, a brief Q&A that we've got for today's webinar. We are going to be putting light to all the questions that you'll be putting across so that we'll get both of them, answer both the questions answered by both the panelists. So over to both of you in no particular order. Please, over to you. Please help us contextualize this discussion better, because I'm sure I've not done any justice to, the illustrious credentials that both of you have had in your own personal capacity with regards to your career. So over to both of you to please help us contextualize this discussion a little better.
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot for a very warm welcome, Neja, and a very good evening to everybody present. I think it's always a fascinating journey to talk about soil, and it's even more pleasure for me to talk about my journey here, and hopefully I can help out whoever is interested in coming to the campus, exploring this wonderful journey that I embarked upon, sharing similar experiences, and I'm sure Febin would second me on that. So happy to indulge in that space, and we can take it forward as well.
Hey, thank you, Neja, for the kind introduction. Hello, folks. It's always good to come back to soil in whichever capacity possible, right? I think I can also imagine myself at this juncture, probably at 2014-15, right? When I was also contemplating whether to take this plunge, join soil or not. For me, it has been a very fruitful journey. I could literally change my career before what I was doing in soil, right? I did my BTech. I was working in L&T for 4 years in core job, and then my career switch happened post my PGDM, which I did in soil. So that 1 year was very grateful for me. Post that, I could really change the direction in which my career went, and now also it's been close to 1 year my stint as entrepreneur. So yeah. Looking forward for the interaction, and hopefully I guess me and Google, we could help in whichever way we can in answering whatever doubts or queries you have. And yeah, so I haven't put any set structure to this. I think it's more I felt it would be more interactive session of sorts. So if there's anything more detail you guys would like to know, I'm open to that for discussion, right? Thank you.
Absolutely. We will be taking, of course, all the questions in a bit. We just wanted to also understand from both of you that, I'm sure a lot of times we pay undue importance to, what is going to be the return on investment, what is the final placements going to be looking like. But when we look at alums like both of you, right, Febin, of course, is a little senior to Gokul, but I hear a loud volume praises from ANB sir about Gokul as well, and even Arjia ma'am as well. So both of you already, how do you probably want to give them advice that, when you're really focusing on just the placements, but the journey is much more bigger and tougher than just like that one placement that you'll get from campus. So what are your two cents on that? What do you both think about this? Like, and I know it's easier said than done, because at that time it just looks like, okay, college placement is the end thing, but the story is much more wider. So what advice would you like to give to everybody who probably takes the college placements to heart, and then they're not really able to understand how this is a humongous marathon. It's just not like a very short sprint that they had in terms of the placement. So what are your opinions on that?
Okay. I think yes, it's a fact that a lot of these students, a lot of us, when we first join, we all get excited, and we all know that how well the placements at Soil are. So our primary focus would always be to ensure we get through the placements. But through the course of journey, an important aspect what I personally observed was how much knowledge one can gain over the course of time. Because end of the day, whether you're eligible, whether you sit for placements, or however the process goes further to, there's always a knowledge gap that needs to get fulfilled when you sit for placements, and how much you build on that is what matters. So my personal experience at Soil was, uh, but from day one, the classes, the lectures, or post lecture discussions with students, or the external Harvard reviews, and a lot of the library facilities that we've had, I've tried to endure my best in all these spaces. uh, make use of time is one of the biggest aspect of what we look at, because we just have I joined the 1 year flagship program, so time was wealth for me completely. And when I came with complete focus that I wanted my career, my stream, to go in the direction that I really wanted to achieve. And I'm pretty sure a lot of us, including Febin and everybody else who have joined and who are currently in the campus as well, would always be driven by that core factor. So I feel two things are very important. One is make use of the time that one has available readily at that point of time. And second is focus more on what knowledge you can gain from whatever resources you're able to achieve from there. Because at every point of time, at every class and every lecture, you gain information. You get that, not focusing on placements, but more on how you build yourself and how you build your knowledge. And keeping that from academical perspective, from an extracurricular perspective, try to build up your soft skills. Try to endure how you meet people. Be like probably write down whatever things you want to plan. So make your schedule exactly how you want to go over the next course of 1 year, or whatever the journey path is. And if you check that, like I said, when you check mark all the process that you have looked at, the end result will always be fruitful. So I think that's what worked for me. And I think Febin, who probably is my senior, would probably give a much more and wider perspective of what and how his journey was in this particular space as well.
Yeah, thanks. I think I would second with what Gokula said, right? I think there would be a lot of MS Dhoni fans as well. So if you notice, right, his philosophy is also similar, right? Work on your inputs. So I think once you guys have taken the call of doing this 1 year course, right, definitely placements is critical. When I was a student as well, that is something which keeps bothering us. But only thing is, always thinking about it doesn't really help, right? So I think, like rightly said, we should look on the process, right? Try and absorb as much as possible. There is enough and more for you guys to learn in this 1 year course, right? It's not just limited to the curriculum or the courses which are there. A lot amount of rich knowledge also can be gained by interactions by the people who come there for guest lectures. A lot of entrepreneurs come, a lot of senior people from different organizations come, so a lot of interactions can happen, right? So it all comes down to how you spend that time, what goals you have in life, right? Placement definitely would be there, and that's just one part of it, right? That is not the entire thing. And I think what I would suggest would be is to make best use of time which is possible in front of you guys, right? In terms of absorbing as much as possible, upgrade your skill set, not only from a standpoint of what is there in curriculum, like soft aspects, also how do you interact with people, how do you problem solve, how do you build your skills, leadership skills, all aspects which are useful for you in your corporate world and in your entrepreneurship world, right? Those things are there for you guys to learn in that 1 year. It all depends on how we take it. And rather than really worrying about placement hoga nahi hoga, will it happen or not, I think the better approach would be is to equip yourself in the best way possible, and then just really hope for things going in your way, which in most likelihood would happen, right? So yeah, I think that's the short answer, I guess.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think both important pieces of advices that we've got, like, the time management, don't overthink at all. Both of you have been working, and you have been saying that, how the work world is drastically changing. We've got people like Andrew Chen coming and saying that, in future, all the companies will be fintech companies, because everybody really needs to understand that, how people will grab those products, how they'll make sure that the financial enablement is done for those products. So how have both of you, in your own personal capacities, you've seen that, that there has been a transition, there has been a shift in the work world, especially in the recent past 2 to 3 years, that we're seeing, where everybody's talking about Gen AI, everybody's talking about, of course, here, I think, Gokul, you are with one of the top three IT firms in India. You're working with them closely. So just help us, both of you, please help us understand. And of course, Febin, you've taken that entrepreneurial plunge. I'm sure, trying to be a jack of everything and mastering also everything at the same time, to make sure that, your businesses are effective. So how have you seen that, the working culture, the working style, the opportunities, the way that those opportunities are called have changed drastically? What are your opinions on that?
I think from my perspective, what I see is there's definitive change, not just within the Asian market, but the global market as well. And despite of how the jobs and how everything else is around, with current Gen AI and a lot of other uh, standard tech that's being come into place, it's very important for one to equip themselves with the relevant skill set. Like for example, if I'm in the tech industry, and even though I'm not there in the front line of the tech space, I'm also required to equip myself in the strategies perspective to understand how one can leverage these new AI tools or any other drastic tools that are coming into place, how I can make use of that, and keep the business running. So at every point of time, with the current market space that's being changed, I think for me, from my perspective, it's not just done with 1 year of soil. Beyond that, whether you're working, whether you're how you're an entrepreneur, you just have to keep yourself equipped with up to date knowledge, reading relevant articles about what's happening around, try to build up the business skill set that you are looking forward to. But yeah, I mean, it's quite a challenging space to be in, but like I said, as challenging as it is, as exciting as it would be. So one just needs to keep grinding, keep doing what you're doing, focus on the base that you're looking at, and I think rest all will automatically fall in place.
Yeah, I think there's a saying, right? Only constant is change, right? So I think the disruptive technologies which are currently coming, right? If you look like 5 years, 10 years back as well, at that point of time, there were technologies in different format which keep coming, right? So these are things which keeps happening in business, right? New technologies keep coming, keep evolving. So like rightly said, I think the ounce is on us as individuals and as business to keep understanding what is happening around us, keep upgrading us, right? Be it as a professional or as an business owner, it's very paramount for you to understand what are the things which are happening around you, and to understand how you can leverage those things for your own benefit, right? Let's take an example. If we are an corporate employee, right? It's very important for us to understand what technology is coming, how are they going to impact us. In our current scenario, if you look at, there are many jobs which we fear would be taken away by, let's say, AI or stuff like that, right? So those are things which probably are inevitable, but I think there will be a lot more new openings which will come up. So I think the way forward would be is, rather than fearing about, hey, is my job secure or not, the ounce is on us to understand, to pivot ourselves, right? Be it business or as a person, as a professional career, we always need to pivot ourselves into new directions where we want to go. We need to stay relevant. That would be the long story short, right? Relevancy play a very important role, be it business or corporate. So I think the only way forward, rightly, would be is to always have a very strong check of what's happening around, have a check of how that's going to impact you or your business as a person or as a business, and then keep pivoting in way to leverage those changes to your advantage. I know it's easier said than done, but yeah, there's no magic bullet to it. That's how it is. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely right. Pivoting your career, making sense of what is happening around. There are also, like, of course, you people would have seen, you worked, and both of you have worked for a considerable duration. For instance, Febin has worked with Swiggy for over, like, 4 years. That's like almost an eternity in today's day and age. Even you, Gokul, your impeccable track record with Infosys. So can you just help us understand that what are the skills that your colleagues, or even when you're talking with the, say, the HRBPs, what are the skill sets that the current work world is actually looking at, which an MBA aspirant should definitely build, develop, and make sure that they're honing. So that is also really important and pivotal when we are talking about career transitions, right? Of course, pivoting your career is good, but like, what are the skills that we should definitely have in order to make sure that we stay relevant in today's day and age?
So I look at from two perspectives. One is from the technology perspective, and one is from the non-technology perspective, which is more like a soft skill perspective. Now, both of them are adequately important. Now, from tech perspective, definitely one's experience will drive them towards reaching whatever goal they want. So they could look at something into, say, agile methodologies, how things work on that, or something about AI, something about coding this in the lines of Python or other usual tools that's being used. That's for those who are really interested in tech space. But predominantly, the core aspects of what skills that really works in today's world would definitely, one of them would definitely be critical thinking, like how up to date you are and how you're able to think on the spot when put in a mix, how you're able to come out of the problem with a very relevant or more accurate solution. Second probably would be how effective you are in listening and how attentive you are to details, because it's as important as it is to shell out your opinion. It's also important to be relevant and to be precise and crisp. So these things, because nobody in the organization perspective have that much time to listen to what we are saying. They want you to the point. They want you to be be exact and as precise as possible, and move on to the next job. So everybody's very quick, and in a fast-paced environment, you are bound to be. I mean, it's not like, even if you are not, automatically things will be pushed forward where you have to be as precise as possible. And third, and which is like probably the most important, but not really spoken of, is how good you are at team building. Because most of the time people end up working with multiple teams, or whether even if you're an individual contributor, you tend to get involved with multiple teams. So it's essential for you to build up that skill set to speak to someone, get the information, or probably have that knack to gather relevant information possible, because it's not possible that you do everything on your own. You will need help, you will need some sort of dependency from someone or the other. So it's important that you build up that skill. And I think rest all will automatically come in place when you start working. But these three are very critical and important, that you prepare yourself, be it by any online courses or anything, that soil themselves will provide enough time for you to prepare these things. So I think this is more relevant from what I've observed from my limited experience that I have had, which Fabian will share more, I suppose.
Yeah, so I think pretty much Gokulas covered major aspects. I would just probably touch upon two or three things additionally, right? So I think I would like to more stress on the softer aspects, right? For example, since this is more to do with team building, or let's say cross-functional interactions which we have with different other teams, or be it with HR and all, right? I think it's always important to create win-win scenarios, right? Wherein whenever there's a problem, when there is a situation, rather than trying to just think from your perspective, I think it's also important to understand where the other person is also coming from. That will always help you to kind of find solutions which are kind of feasible for both, right? Or probably if you provide a solution, you can present it in a way which can be understood by the other stakeholder as well. So trying and creating win-win scenarios will be easier for you to have the conversations with when it comes to cross-functional stakeholder. And also always having a solution mindset, right? Whenever there's a problem, what we generally find in a team is there'll be n number of people to say, hey, this is the problem with this is the problem. So obviously there'll be problems, but what is the solution you have to offer to that, right? Rather than being the problem, highlighting the problems always, I think it would be great if you go one step ahead, right? Wherein you say this is a problem which you found, but I guess this also could be the solution to it, right? Always having that solution approach, solution mindset, that's in the entire way how you think, right? I think these two things generally to add to what Gokul had already highlighted, these things will definitely help you in navigating through tough conversations or difficult challenges which you can come across in the corporate setup, right? Which would be dealing with different stakeholders. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I urge all of you to please put your Q&A, your questions, and we will be, of course, addressing all the questions also. Before we just get started with answering all the questions that will be coming during the course of the webinar, there's also like a very commonly asked question, especially people, who are trying to probably sit in for opportunities. And both of you here, Gokul has done a majors in marketing and strategy, and Febin, you also have impeccable in-depth understanding of, how the distribution channels work. So can you just help us understand that, when a student, particularly if it's like the PGPM program, when they're making a career decision, of course, they're already well aware about, what are their specializations, but how can they figure out what job roles can be appropriate? Is there a particular selection criteria that probably you people applied when you were graduating, that, you decided a particular role? So what should be the selecting criteria? Should people look at, the job role, the location? If they're looking at job role, what are the specifics that they should definitely look in for? Or are there other, parameters that they should consider, the growth of that industry, or whether that industry has reached a saturation already and it doesn't really makes any sense to join that industry? So what are the parameters, the industry versus job role versus opportunity? How would you probably advise that, the current batch students also who will be sitting for their placements, how can they take their decisions of, opting for the placements?
Sure. So I think it all builds from which stream or which path they want to get into soil first. So for the first confusion always happens whether they want marketing, whether they want finance, whether they want HR, what role they want. So that clarity of thought would ideally come from not just from what industry they want to take their career forward from there, but also where they see themselves. So whether they are comfortable, what genre of masters are they looking at, whether they are into marketing, whether they really want, whether they are skill set and they've honed their entire mind to understand financials expertise, whether they want something to do in HR. So all that really comes from that perspective. So once they get that clear, the thought about which industry you want to get, it's always confusing, because I personally was always in that mindset, what next, which industry that I want to get into, because I think I am part of that kind of a group which came along with me, who wanted a career change, who wanted a shift in career, because I come from a mechanical or a mech oriented platform. So for me to have a little more broader perspective, to be involved more in the business contributing side, was always a challenge when you come from a mechanical side. So it takes a while to grow, and that's where soil came into picture. And through the course of my journey, what I observed was, like I said at the beginning, building up relevant skill sets, trying to understand what's happening in the market and being relevant to whatever is happening around. And I was looking at getting into consulting, or be probably in the information technology side, or probably in a little more front end business management consulting side. Whichever path that I chose, I was comfortable with both these paths, and that's how I aligned my skill sets. So when you talk about how the industry is, and how you have to, and where you, and what sort of decision you have to take when you're sitting it, I think almost all industries are now definitely on the right track. I would say that yes, with the latest with latest innovations and technology that's happening, there are some job roles, job cuts happening all over the world, but I don't see that to be a major factor for India, especially because of how well we are situated and how good we are growing currently compared to other parts of the world. So yes, so if you want to get into a consulting space, then the relevant skill set that you need to build will have to come from the day one you're joining soil itself. If you want to look at IT set, then most of the time your experience, your past experience also plays a pivotal role, whether whichever space you want to get into. But having said that, there are definite number of people who have changed their path, coming from a different stream and moving on to different stream, and only way to achieve that is build up your skills and keep being up to date. So that's one. Second would probably be how well you are, like where exactly you want to, which sort of industry you see yourself. Like there can be someone who wants to get into the marketing space. Like I like myself, I took my like my soil journey began with PGPM in marketing. So I was really intrigued with how different levels of education has helped me throughout. And being in the marketing side, I thought, this is giving me a good understanding of where I want to get into. And to be honest, I really thought that's where I will move forward. But then I got myself into consulting. I got myself into Infosys strategy, and it's really helped me out. So I think it's more about what skill set you're looking at and what sort of industry you want to target. So basis whichever industry you target, you can get into it. There won't be any challenge per se into that.
Yeah, so I think from my perspective, right, I would largely say on two aspects, right? So from my own experience, if I were to say, in my stint in Swiggy, I joined in as city head, which was into the vertical of building that city from an P&L standpoint, building the restaurant side of things, building the delivery executive side of things, right? But in later stage, I could change my profile, right? From that role, I moved on to a different role, which was more into out and out account management, which is out and out sales. So the point which I'm trying to make is, as long as you find out a good brand to work with, right? Generally, all brands these days believe in building their own people within, right, rather than hiring externally. So as long as you are working with a good brand, there will always be flexibility of changing the roles, right? You can explore different roles which you always wanted to. Probably at starting your career, you might think you want to pursue sales, but let's say after some time you feel you want to try out marketing as well, or you want to try some other vertical as well. So generally, what I've seen in companies, my own example, my friends as well, is as long as you perform well, do good in your current role, the organization will also want to retain you, and they'll show the flexibility, or they'll show the willingness for you to adapt into the new role or transition into the new role. So for me, if I were in your place, right, the two most critical things which I would look at is one, am I going to work with a good brand? When I say good brand, not only from a brand call perspective, but also from a culture perspective, right? Do they have the right culture? For example, do they have the culture wherein they promote the people? Do they encourage people to shift different roles, transition to different roles, stuff like that, right? So that would be one. Second, from a role perspective as well, for me, location, let's say, and I know the big question would be is also salary, right? I think that should slightly take uh, uh, one step below, I would say, because it's like compounding, right? Over a period of time, as long as you have the right experience, you have worked in the right roles, you will eventually catch up with the guys, right? Even if you start off at, let's say, slightly lower salary, as long as you're working with a good company, or let's say you're doing a dream role which you always wanted to, you're acquiring those skill sets, I think it will eventually pay off in the long run. So rather than having a short vision of, let's say, I want a very high paying job, what I would suggest is to go after roles which you are really passionate about, or go after organizations you want to really work in, and then you can figure out your way. Because I personally, when I left soil, I was not 100% clear ki, yes, I want to do, let's say I got placed in Lava, right? I never knew that, okay, I'll go into an handset or mobile industry. That just happened. And from there on, I could position my career, or I could transition my career, pivot my career the way I wanted. So I think it's always, in most cases, it will be like that. So what I would suggest is to prepare yourself to work in the roles you want or the organizations you want, and then you can keep pivoting depending on how you want to take your career forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a question which is very specific by one of our one of our participants, Gurvinder Kaur, and she's saying, "Hello, sir. I am a wing commander, Gurvinder Kaur, retired. After completing 14 years as a short service commissioned officer, wanted to figure out that after 14 years of experience in 1 year of PGPM program, would the program be a good, transition or launchpad to just pivot the career into entrepreneurship or corporate life altogether, or should Gurvinder go for a 2 year PGDM program or a master's altogether? And Gurvinder is a BTech in ECE and PGDIP in aeronautical engineering. So, considering both of you are coming from the tech background before Soil, so it'd be great to have both your opinions on Gurvinder's dilemma.
Okay, yeah, sure. I think 14 years of service itself is a massive thing, and I've read that and I felt really happy seeing that there's someone who's there in such background trying to explore more and explore further. So massive respect for the first space, but yes, like I said, I see soil as a space which gives enough knowledge for one to take their career forward. As much as past experience and previous experience plays a vital role for the next step that they want to look at, it's also important that how much skill set you build, like I keep saying from the beginning. So I think yes, it's a good opportunity if you really want to look at in that way, where you're going for the next stage of your career, whether you want to build in corporate or whether you want to be an entrepreneur. I think with 14 years of experience, entrepreneurship would rather be a good space for them to be at, because I'm probably not the right person with the level of experience that I have to talk about where they can take it forward. But come from soil perspective, I've really found it to be perfect for one to shift their career. And it's just that there's always, like I say, there's just, if you probably have to take the step from your end to go for the next space. You cannot just have everything collectively achieved for you. You have relevant information in front of you. It's up to you to take that forward and make use of it completely. And if one makes use of it well, then I think yeah, it's definitely going to be a wonderful journey ahead.
Yeah, what I can add is in your if you decide to take up your stint at soil, right, it'll give you the opportunities, it'll give you the experiences for you to go either way, right? Even for entrepreneurship, the kind of skill sets you are needed, I think the first and foremost thing is to actually be a very patient listener, have a very keen observation of what problem statement you want to solve, right? As entrepreneurs, you would be solving for some problem. There's some gap which you're going to fix. So I think those kind of skill sets is something, if you're already in you, well and good. If not, those are things probably you'll be exposed to a lot of such cases, right? You'll get to interact with a lot of entrepreneurs, wherein you'll understand how did they go about understanding the pain point and how are they going about solving it. So I think those level of interactions you will be exposed to. You can take inspirations from those, or if it's pure play corporate is where you want to get in, I think those opportunities also will be there if you take up this soil. So ultimately that's another thing which I always keep saying within my friends, within my teams, right? Ultimately the sense of ownership of decision should lay with ourselves, right? There'll be many people who will be there to guide you, who will be there to help you, right? But ultimate decision is something which we have to take with complete conviction. Whether it's end of the day it pans out good or bad, I think that's something which you'll have to own completely. So from a pointer standpoint, I think to answer your question, yes, you will get opportunities to take your path in terms of entrepreneurship or in terms of corporate, right? But is that the right decision for you at this point? I think that will completely be with you on how do you want to take it forward, right? So yeah.
Absolutely. There's another very fascinating question. I always get fascinated with this question because, I think consulting looks very glamorous. However, at Soil, case in point, our founder, the captain of the ship, Anil sir, I think I barely, barely doubt, whether sir would be having like a proper 6 hour sleep every day or not. But, Arun Kumar is trying to say that, he is from manufacturing manufacturing and wants to actually pivot his career into consulting. So of course, another common dilemma of most of the people who are trying to actually after work experience pivot their careers into a similar role altogether. And here, Gokul, maybe you can also throw light because you had a very similar a so-called philosophy for yourself. So even though this question, of course, if somebody is coming from manufacturing, can they shift into consulting? And secondly, also as a follow-up question, what are your opinions about consulting? Because it looks like really glamorous, so much of hard work, toil that needs to be put all together, fitment all together, industry insights and knowledge that comes. So what are your opinion about when an aspirant really talks about your suggestion about switching to consulting? And Gurvinder is thanking both of you for the insights. So over to both of you, to help us decode whether from manufacturing someone can pivot into consulting and consulting overall as a career for a typical MBA aspirant.
I think this is one of the most common question that I've had, and a lot of people keep asking, and I totally understand and relate to what Arun's asking. Uh, it's very important that we understand why we want to do MBA, because that's the first question that I really want to address here. Because people really want to do MBA because they want to change their career, and I probably would have started off with that thought, but over the course of time is when I realized that career stream can happen irrespective of what you're looking at, but it's very important that how you prepare yourself with whatever changes are about to come. So yes, I understand that like Arun said, he's from manufacturing and then he wants to move into consulting. Will MBA help is his question. Now, MBA necessarily or need not give him the exact solution for it, but definitely it adds certain value, because most consultants that are there in those top organizations right now, a lot of them are those who have completed their masters in business administrations as well. Not necessarily, but from what I've understood, yes, it definitely helps to a great extent. But beyond that, I think one really needs to prepare themselves into the consulting space, because like you said rightly, consulting is just it's probably a very glamorous role from the outside, but in reality it's long hours of slogging, and it requires massive amount of dedication one needs to inculcate and transform into. So it's definitely a challenging role, and if one is looking forward and getting that sort of a role, then I think nothing's going to stop them. And definitely an MBA would be a plus, it would help them out. But even just because you have an MBA does not mean that you're guaranteed a space in the consulting space. You need to build up a lot of skills and a lot of other aspects that one needs to drive themselves into. So I think that's what I've seen from my limited years of experience, and that's where I am right now. So I think that's what I come from.
Kevin, would you like to also take a stab at it?
No, I think he has covered it, right? I think the straightforward answer is it necessary? Not mandatory, right? But like Gokul has finally put it, it definitely helps. It helps in a great extent. But if you look into history, or if you look into your friends or your circle itself, you'll find examples where even people without MBA probably might have got in consultancy role, but having an MBA background definitely helps in terms of setting up the frameworks, understanding how to approach a problem statement. Right, from that standpoint, I think it's a good thing. But again, does having an MBA, would it ensure that you get a consultancy role? Again, straight answer is no. It's a function of a lot of other things which goes into it, but definitely MBA is something which will help you, or let's say it improves your probability, if I were to put it that way. Yeah.
Absolutely. There's also a question, which of course, because both of you are doing hands-on work, that what are typically the most popular topics, especially for this year? I don't know if you both had a similar selection process. The GDPI and the other processes that are there. So, what are the most trending topics that people should definitely prepare, especially if they're going to be sitting for their B school interview processes this year? So, any recommendations? Like Gen AI being trending, anything else that they should definitely make sure that they do their proper homework and come prepared?
I think not just looking at placement perspective, but generally on a daily basis, from a business standpoint, it's very important that one stays up to date with what's happening around. But being very specific to different selection processes, I think uh, yes, I did have some tests, say psychometric tests that keeps happening before any organization perspective. So I did have GD that I had to attend in a couple of interviews. PI will always be there towards the end, but so yeah, it's good from a placement perspective, for be it for soil or be it for anywhere else. From organization point of view, it's good to prepare yourself for psychometry. But from GD perspective, I think a lot of these topics that's happening, trending around. I think the India versus Maldives is a very trending topic. What's happening and how it's going to impact the country as a whole. The whole the Ram Mandir construction, and how it's a very sensitive topic, but definitely something which a lot of the organizations would want to explore to understand different people's insights. Probably also about the global space economy, where it is right now. I mean, whatever events have happened over the last course of time for 1 year or so, it's definitely in the radar of all these organizations to understand how you put forward your views. And when you put forward your views, I recommend one to put forward in such a way that you have numbers on hand. You have specific approximation of data from your hand. You have proven evidence of what you're speaking out, and that should probably drive you towards the GD process. But irrespective of all this, is very important one stays up to date, irrespective of whether they are working, they're applying for them, they're applying in an interview, or they are like preparing themselves for soil as well.
Absolutely. Febin, anything that you'd like to add to the laundry list given by Gokul?
Nice. So I think one practice which I personally do is when I go for my morning walk, I generally listen to some podcast, right? And the kind of podcast which I listen to are either it would be business podcast, which will give you sense of what are the trending topics and what is its impact on business, right? Be it in the context of Indian market or global market. That would be one. And second would be overall with national politics of sorts, which covers the other 2 points which Gokul had mentioned, right? So different people have different approaches to it. This is my approach because that's one time again you don't do much, right? At least people who have that culture or have that in your work, in your daily activity, wherein you do some activity which doesn't really need much of mind space. I think that is something you can utilize to listen to podcast, which again it can be of you should also be clear on what kind of podcast you're listening. Sometimes it can be polarizing views which are coming out, but I think you should be smart enough to take the right content, but you'll get a sense of what's happening around, and then you can form your own opinions, and you can form your own data points on it, on how do you build your opinion on that particular topic. These are pointers which will come in handy, which you can use to your advantage. Or I think the other skill set of how do you present yourself in GD, those are kind of normal skill set, but you need points which you want to discuss, right? For that, you're probably listening to some podcast, stuff like that will be really helpful for you to get a sense of what's happening around and what are the impacts.
And just to probably add on to that, I think I missed saying this point, how I prepared for GD, because I think from the day one when we came to soil, we started collecting daily topics of discussion that what we could discuss on. We made notes specifically, so we always had let's say today I'm talking about today's topic that was something about India versus Maldives, for example. So we probably as a group of people, we've collected points, we noted down. So it probably need not be every day, but probably every week, where we keep noting down points on different topics. So we build like a database of points that what we have. And that's something what really helped me from my experience, because when I encountered multiple GDs during my interview and other selection process, I had relevant points with me on hand. So there was always that about 10 to 12 points that I had in my mind that I could talk on, I could bridge the gap on. Like Febin said, how you're speaking in GD is probably secondary, and that automatically flows with the course of the conversation. But these having relevant points is more important, and that's how I prepared. So this is something not just during specific preparation for this activity, but otherwise also you could do it. And finally, we got a knack of reading the daily Mint articles that keeps coming. So that's very common. That's what we've always used. So that also keeps you in check as well. So yeah, I think that's what I wanted to convey.
Absolutely. I think I've got a nugget for our career development sessions also for all the students, even though we keep on hammering it. But I think having your own current business awareness journal to make sure that you have the relevant pointers to speak about. Yeah, you wanted to say something else, Kokul?
No. I mean, that's what the more or less we've covered. I think this itself will go for a very long conversation to talk about how this
Absolutely,
works.
absolutely. We hope to invite you for that elongated one. Certainly. Both of you actually, we would love to invite, and we've already bartered that. Now, moving towards the conclusion, we by and large looked at the Q&A as well, and it's been a very enriching discussion about pivoting careers and what are the skill sets that are required or how the work world looks like. To just culminate the discussion, what would be your concluding remarks to students, both trying to enter the MBA journey? A lot of students are going to be sitting for their final placements this year, and this year particularly is considered to be, at least the halo around the year is like it's a tough competitive year filled with layoffs, and already the mojo not working in your favor because so much of negativity is already there into this year's placement cycle. So what are the last words that you'll definitely love to give to both the sets of people, one's ready to start their career with the MBAs, and the other about to end their so-called MBA journey with the placement as the next movement? So please, over to both of you.
So to the ones who are looking at pursuing an MBA, especially at Soil, and I would say it's definitely a wonderful experience. It was a transformative journey for me, because if I can really compare my life as before Soil and after Soil, because I've personally experienced the very minute changes in myself, be it the level of information and how I looked at things. So from my perspective, it was definitely a transformative journey. Now, if one really wants that, if one is serious about, because I was very serious about it, because I came into Soil as someone who really wanted to create a name and create a career for oneself. Because before that, I didn't see myself going in a direction that I've looked at. So if you're really serious about what you want to do, and if really want to achieve something, and I think Soil definitely is a place for you to do it. Having said that, it's just a platform for you to build up your skill set. It's up to the individual to take the initial step, take it forward, and not just focus on what's happening in the classroom, but also around, and try to use as much time as you can. Because even though 1 year looks like a very short period of time, you will have enough, probably a few leisure hours that you could get. One, instead of spending time in a more relaxed way, you can also look at how you can harness yourself from an industry perspective. That is what your focus is. So that's what I would probably recommend for those who are wanting to look at MBA. Also, more importantly, be sure that you want to do an MBA. It's not that you want to do it for the sake of doing it. That's very important, to decide like what you want to need to do. And for those who are sitting for placements and are awaiting a very tense period, I think probably not as difficult as now, but I also sat in a similar space when I was in the placement side. It was a challenging bit. Overcoming that is it's gonna be, it definitely it'll not be it'll not be a cakewalk. But having said that, everybody will. So how do you do it? Like I said, you take the pressure of placements aside and look at how you present yourself, be it in an interview or be it for any specific topics or any particular time during the placement. uh, be up to date. Just keep learning and unlearning and relearning whatever you've done. Ensure that a lot of these topics of, like for example, the GD topics we discussed and a lot more other discussions that you have with your peers, try to get knowledge from that. Speak to a lot of alumni, and not just alumni, but also about those LinkedIn contacts you can speak to, understand what's happening in the current market from those who are actually working. They would give a fairer perspective of what it is right now in the market. And third, and most importantly, don't take pressure. It's very easy to say that, but it's a natural fact that in a single company, they're not going to be taking 80 people. They'll be taking only 3 or 4. But it's the rest should not feel dejected about it, and keep grinding, keep following the process, like I said from the beginning, because eventually something will click in, and that's definite for sure. So yeah, that's from what it is. I'd like to hear what Febin also would say, because he has a very, very different and rather a very enriching experience as well.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much similar, right? For folks who want to do MBA, I think that is something we earlier answered as well, right? Have 100% conviction, had 100% ownership on the decision that you have taken the decision to do it. Why do you want to do it, right? The environment will be there set for you to really learn. It's like what you can absorb. You're like small, right? How much can you absorb? The ounces on you to take benefit out of it, right? In terms of faculty, in terms of course materials, in terms of external people who come to take classes or seminars, all the resources will be at your disposal. It's all about how do you absorb them, how do you make use of them, right? Because in my batch around, I think 120 people are there. Everyone have their own way of approaching things, right? It's the same set of inputs everyone have, but obviously everyone don't perform the same way, right? That's so it'll all come down to you on how do you want to go about it, what are your priorities in life, right? How do you go about it? So a lot of emphasis will lie on you. So for all the folks who are planning to take this plunge into soil, be prepared for that, be clear on what you want to do, and always be open to learn new things and understand things, right? And acquire as much as skill sets as possible. For the folks who are sitting for interviews or in that tensed environment, I think never lose hope, right? Always put your best foot forward. The things which are in your control, right? Generally, whenever any problem comes at you, there would be two aspects of it. One are things which are in your control, and second is things which are beyond your control. So there's no point worrying about things which are beyond your control, right? So things which are in your control are the way how you prepare for that interview, or how do you do research about the organization, about the role. So those are things which are pretty much in your control. Always do your groundwork very well in terms of role. Probably try and interact with some other people who are doing that similar role. If it's an organization, try and interact with few people who are already working or people who work there, right? So from your input standpoint, always give your 100% or more, right? And then don't really worry about how exactly it will turn out, because there's no point worrying about it. Probably this interview might not have happened because something better is in store for you. So as long as you keep doing your input, your efforts is right, if not today, tomorrow you will definitely able to crack. So always keep that positive attitude, and don't lose hope, right? For example, let's say you put in all your efforts and you're not able to crack the first interview. That doesn't mean that for your next interview you go demotivate saying, man, I worked my lot but nothing panned out. So never change your approach as long as you're doing the right thing, right? If not today, tomorrow it will click. Have that belief in yourself, and all the best. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. I think both of you beautifully summed up. Rather, I'm sure everybody is energized from, keep grinding. The company won't take 70 to 80 of them. And you really need to know how to muster the courage to face failures and understand that, in due course of time, the dots will be connected and you're so soon going to be having a campus placement. And of course, your inner locus of control, outer locus of control, things beyond my control should not be really worried about. Easier said than done, of course, but that's where the challenge is. I think it was beautiful interacting with both of you, the two of you. And thanks everyone for joining. Thank you so much once again, both Feb and Gokul. And like I said, we are, of course, going to be connecting again for the individual sessions and master classes, both on consulting and on entrepreneurship by the two of you very soon. Thanks, everyone. Please feel free to stay connected with both of them. They are active on LinkedIn, I think hyperactive on LinkedIn, both of them. They'll be happy to address your queries and concerns. And thanks so much, Harsha and team, for helping us, get the webinar put together for everybody to understand career transitions and journeys. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's great having you.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It was nice interacting with you.
Thank you.